Chapter 5, States of Consciousness. In this chapter, you will cover consciousness, sleep and dreams, psychoactive drugs, hypnosis, and meditation. The book starts out with a story about Eric Ramsey, who was injured in a car accident, leaving him with a rare condition called locked-in syndrome. He could only move the muscles of his eyes, which was the only way that he could communicate, but he did still have his mind. A team of doctors, scientists, and engineers worked together to develop the technology to allow Eric to think the sounds that he couldn't make with his voice, but that a computer could recognize and translate into speech. In 2010, he was able to produce 3 vowel sounds. So what is consciousness? How would you define it? Consciousness can be defined in 2 parts: an individual's level of awareness to external events and internal sensations, and arousal. Arousal refers to the physiological state of being engaged with the environment. Neuroscientists believe that there's not just one place in the brain for consciousness. They believe there are separate processing systems that connect to produce consciousness. Awareness is a subjective state of being conscious and occurs in a global brain workspace. It involves a variety of brain areas working in parallel. It's also determined by the reticular activating system, which is a network of structures including the brainstem, medulla, and thalamus. Areas of the prefrontal cortex are also involved in complex sensations and awareness events. William James described the mind as a stream of consciousness, a continuant flow of ever-changing sensations, images, thoughts, and feelings. He also described aspects of our awareness that are on the fringe of our stream of consciousness, referring to the feelings and thoughts that we have about our thoughts, which is the definition of metacognition. It refers to thinking about thinking. The awareness of thinking about something can have survival benefits as well. As humans, we have a tendency to anthropomorphize. That is, to see animals and even inanimate objects as conscious beings just like humans. People use smiley faces to convey emotion and think about our pets. Do you think that they have feelings and think like we do? We have a tendency to see them as doing so. Under the theory of mind viewpoint, we each have a theory of mind module that's imposed not only on our own view of other humans, but all of these other things as well, leading us to regard them in some way as thinking beings. One may consider that consciousness is the part of yourself that contains your private thoughts and feelings. Developmental psychologists refer to this as the theory of mind, which emerges around 4 years old, but younger in some children. The theory of mind is important in such social capacities as empathy and sympathy. Researchers propose that children with autism may lack a well-developed theory of mind, which can explain some of the social deficits that they experience. In terms of awareness, in higher level consciousness, there are controlled processes, which are most alert states of consciousness. Individuals actively alert their attention toward a goal. It's on purpose. A key element of controlled processing is executive function, which refers to the higher order cognitive processes such as thinking, planning, and problem solving. Control processes are managed by the prefrontal cortex. In terms of lower levels of awareness, you have automatic processes, which are states of consciousness that require little attention, and they do not interfere with other activities. One such example is daydreaming. It lies between active consciousness and dreaming while asleep. Mind wandering is the most well-known type of daydreaming. Daydreaming can be useful in that a person may be making plans, solving problems, and coming up with creative ideas during daydreaming. It keeps our minds active while helping us cope, create, and fantasize. There's also altered states of consciousness. Altered states of consciousness are mental states that are noticeably different from normal awareness. One such state is drug state, when it's induced by drugs. Can be induced by fatigue, trauma, illness, deprivation, as well as meditation and hypnosis are forms of altered consciousness. And some mental disorders also contain altered states of consciousness. In terms of subconscious awareness, there are many things going on around us that we're not aware of, such as our brain functioning right now. When we're awake and have waking subconscious awareness, processes are occurring just below the surface of awareness. Incubation is the subconscious processing of information that leads to a solution to a problem after a break from conscious thought about that problem. During sleep and dreams, the level of awareness is below what it is during daydreaming. Research has shown that while a person is asleep, they're still somewhat aware of external stimuli. When a person is unconscious, they are normally knocked out by a blow or they are under anesthesia. Sigmund Freud believed that unconscious thought was where a person keeps unacceptable wishes, feelings, and thoughts that are beyond their awareness. Unconscious processes can have an important influence on our behavior. Prosocial behavior. Prosociality is often considered a defining characteristic in humans because, unlike other animals, people extend kindness not to just those they know, but to also strangers. Research suggests that prosocial behavior does not require reflection prior to engaging in the acts of kindness. The difference between helping versus harming may be largely automatic in terms of processing. Doing the act of kindness requires a more controlled processing approach. Multitasking refers to paying attention to two or more sources of stimuli at once. It involves the division of your attention. It creates less attention and impairs your attention to a specific task. And it's likely to cause interference when a significant task variation is present. Visual task absorption can produce inattentional deafness. Auditory task absorption can produce inattentional blindness. Cell phone use is more dangerously distracting than driving while legally drunk. Using a handset or Bluetooth device while driving does not improve safety because your brain is still having to split your attention. Biological rhythms. They are controlled by the biological clock, which includes annual or seasonal cycles, 28-day cycles or 24-hour cycles. The changing from day to night is controlled by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is a small structure in the brain that synchronizes its own rhythm with the daily cycle of light and dusk and is based on information from the retina. The circadian rhythm is a daily behavioral or physiological cycle that includes the sleep-wake cycle, body temperature, blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. The circadian rhythms also include eating and elimination cycles as well as sleep. The fact that eating cycles include multiple meals and some cultures' sleep cycle includes a siesta does not negate the overall cycle's daily rhythm. In the suprachiasmatic nucleus, there are clusters of neurons within the hypothalamus that govern the timing of the circadian rhythm. The role of sunlight is important in that each day sunset is detected by the suprachiasmatic nucleus through its connections with the visual system. The suprachiasmatic nucleus also triggers an increase in melatonin, which then increases blood levels, triggers increase in melatonin, and that increase of melatonin in your blood makes you sleepy and reduces your activity levels. Your biological clock can be desynchronized or set off their cycle by such things as jet travel, sometimes referred to jet lag, can also be set off by changing work shifts or insomnia. With regard to jet lag and resetting your biological clock, it's a good idea to spend as much time as possible in the daylight. Melatonin can help reduce the effects of jet lag. Circadian rhythm also can be an issue with people who are blind. Many blind people have a desynchronized circadian rhythm because they're unable to detect the sunlight that normally sets the body's internal biological clock. Like sighted people deprived of all environmental time cues, blind people can experience desynchronized melatonin, body temperature, and sleep-wake circadian cycles. Consequently, about 60% of blind people suffer from recurring bouts of insomnia or other sleep problems. So why do we need sleep? There are many important benefits of sleep, such as restoration, adaptation, growth, and memory. It's also an important mechanism for survival. Many of the body's cells show increased production or reduced breakdown of proteins during deep sleep. Sleep also gives the neurons used while awake a time to shut down and repair themselves. This is a restorative function of sleep. For some animals, it is safer to search for food and water when it's dark outside. For other animals, however, sleep is time to save energy and avoid getting eaten or fall off a cliff that cannot be seen. During sleep, the cerebral cortex is free to conduct activities that strengthen memory connections so that memories can be moved into long-term storage. So what are the effects of sleep? Chronic sleep deprivation can wreak havoc. The lack of sleep has an impact on the body and brain, often causing additional stress. Research has shown that extreme sleep deprivation can cause hallucinations as well as speech and movement problems. There's a rare disorder called fatal familial insomnia, and it's a genetic mutation that causes a person to progressively not get any sleep. Researchers suggest that we are at our best when we get 8 hours of sleep, though this can vary due to age and activity level. Sleep deprivation can make it difficult to make decisions and problem solve. Brain waves are an aggregation of the electrical activity of thousands of neurons. The reason alert wakefulness is associated with desynchronous brain waves is analogous to the sound produced by a stadium full of fans chatting in separate conversations. Each neuron is busily about its own business. An electroencephalogram is used to monitor the brain's electrical activity. The stages of sleep correspond to massive electrophysiological changes that occur throughout the brain in fast, irregular, and low-amplitude electrical activity of wakefulness. Beta waves reflect wakefulness. They are the highest in frequency and lowest in amplitude and are more desynchronous. So stage W for sleep is characterized by beta and alpha waves. The person is considered awake and alert. Alpha waves reflect relaxation, yet wakefulness. They slow down, increase in amplitude, and are more synchronous. The 5 stages of sleep are differentiated by the types of wave patterns detected by an EEG. Stage N1 sleep is characterized by drowsiness and sudden muscle movements called myoclonic jerks. In this stage, theta waves are present. In the N2 stage, which is non-REM, muscle activity decreases and the person is no longer consciously aware of the environment. Sleep spindles are sudden high-frequency wave bursts. This stage of sleep is a relatively light sleep stage and people can be awoken pretty easily. In the N3 stage, sleep is characterized by delta waves and is the deepest sleep stage. During this stage, bedwetting, sleepwalking, and sleep talking may occur. If awoken at this stage, people appear confused and disoriented. In stage R, which is for REM sleep, in the REM stage, a person goes through sleep stages N1 through 3. They drift back up towards wakefulness, but they do not reach stage N1. Instead, they enter stage R, which is called REM sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement. REM sleep is an active stage of sleep where dreaming occurs. An EEG shows fast waves that resemble those of wakefulness. The amount of time spent in REM sleep throughout the night changes as people get older. One sleep cycle, which is the time spent going through the stages of sleep one time, lasts about 90 to 100 minutes. They reoccur several times throughout the night. The night's first time in REM sleep lasts only about 10 minutes, and the final time in REM sleep may only last about an hour. The sleep stages are associated with neurotransmitters in the reticular formation of the brain. Serotonin, epinephrine, acetylcholine are the 3 important neurotransmitters that are involved in sleep. A person is more likely to wake up after a period of REM sleep, and if they do not, the level of neurotransmitters start to decrease and the person enters another sleep cycle. So getting sufficient sleep is very important at every stage of human life. Sleep can help with physical growth and brain development in infants and children. For adolescents, they need about 9 hours of sleep, though they tend to get much fewer hours. This may have an impact on their academic work performance. Research has found that adolescents' biological clocks undergo a shift, causing them to delay their periods of wakefulness of about an hour. Older adults also see a shift in sleeping. They tend to go to bed earlier and wake up earlier than in other developmental stages. Individuals older than 40 report waking up more throughout the night. So there's some issues around sleep. Stroke and asthma attacks are more likely during the night and early morning. Sleepiness is also associated with obesity and heart disease. Sleep can help the body conserve energy and other resources that the body needs during an infection. Sleep problems afflict those with psychological disorders such as depression or other disorders like Alzheimer's disease. Several sleep disorders. Insomnia is the inability to sleep and can involve having trouble falling asleep, waking up during the night, or waking up early in the morning. Women are more likely to have trouble with insomnia than men, and this is probably due to iron deficiencies and hormonal changes. For short-term insomnia, doctors usually prescribe sleeping pills. There's also sleepwalking, talking, and eating. Somnambulism is another term for sleepwalking. It occurs during the deepest stage of sleep. Sleep talkers also are sound asleep. Nightmares occur in REM sleep and are defined as a frightening dream that wakens a person. They can peak for children between the ages of 3 and 6 years, and night terror is characterized by sudden arousal from sleep and intense fear. Night terrors peak for children between the ages of 5 and 7 years. Narcolepsy is an overpowering urge to sleep. The person may fall asleep while talking or standing up. The person with narcolepsy goes directly into REM sleep when it occurs. Sleep apnea. This involves an individual who will stop breathing during sleep. People with sleep apnea wake up many times during the night because they can't breathe, but they're usually not aware of it. The disorder is common among infants, adults over the age of 65, and individuals who are obese. Sleep apnea may cause lost productivity, accidents, and health-related issues, and has been implicated in sudden infant death syndrome. Now remember, it's talking about the people that it's common in. That doesn't mean that other people do not have sleep apnea. If you snore, or if anyone makes comments about you snoring or gasping for air at night, you may want to have a sleep study to make sure that you do not have sleep apnea. Freud believed that dreams symbolized unconscious wishes. Manifest content is the dream's surface content, whereas latent content refers to the dream's hidden content or meaning, the subconscious level. The cognitive theory of dreaming states that dreaming can be understood by applying the same cognitive concepts that are used when studying the waking mind. Therefore, dreaming involves information processing, memory, and problem solving. From the cognitive theory point of view, dreams are where a person can solve problems and think creatively. This view of dreaming ties brain activity that occurs during dreams to the activity that occurs during waking life. There's also an activation synthesis theory, which states that dreaming occurs when the cerebral cortex synthesizes neural signals that are generated from activity in the lower part of the brain. Neural networks in other areas of the forebrain play a role in dreaming as well. So why do people take drugs? Psychoactive drugs are substances that act on the nervous system to alter states of consciousness, modify perceptions, and change moods. What do you believe the trends are in adolescent use of drugs? Psychoactive drugs cause an increase in dopamine levels in the brain's reward system pathways, especially in the ventral tegmental area of the nucleus accumbens. Drug use among youth is a concern and problem because it's associated with other problems such as unsafe sex, sexually transmitted infections, unplanned pregnancies, depression, school-related problems, and there's been a decline in the 21st century in illegal drug use among secondary students. Drug use for personal gratification can be dangerous because it leads to drug dependence, personal disarray, and a predisposition to serious, sometimes fatal diseases. When a person has to take more and more of a drug to achieve the same desired effect, they've become tolerant. Physical dependence is the physiological need for a drug. Without the drug, the person exhibits withdrawal symptoms. Psychological dependence is a strong desire to repeat using the drug for emotional reasons. For drug use to be considered an addiction, there has to be a physical and/or psychological dependence on the drug. So, how does the brain become addicted? There are different types of drugs and they do different things. Depressants slow down mental and physical activity. So alcohol is a depressant and it slows down the brain's activity. People may act more freely, loosen up a bit after a few drinks because the area of the brain involved in inhibition and judgment slows down. Activities that involve intellectual functioning and motor skills become impaired. Researchers believe that the frontal cortex holds a memory for the pleasure that was involved in prior alcohol use and therefore contributes to the continued drinking through the impact of GABA and dopamine in the brain. Next, to caffeine. Alcohol is the most widely used drug in America. Alcoholism involves long-term, repeated, uncontrolled, compulsive, and excessive use of alcohol beverages that impairs the drinker's health and social relationships. A recent survey conducted among U.S. high school seniors found that at least 39% of them had consumed alcohol within the last 30 days, and that at least 26% of them had engaged in binge drinking, which is consuming 5 or more drinks in a row. 1 of 9 people that become alcoholics do so because of some genetic disposition. This may be because the brains of people genetically predisposed to alcoholism may be unable to produce enough dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that elicits pleasure. Barbiturates is a depressant drug as well that decreases the activity of the central nervous system. They were originally prescribed as sleep aids. With increased usage, they can lead to impaired memory and decision making. Tranquilizers reduce anxiety and induce relaxation. Tranquilizers are usually prescribed to calm an anxious, nervous person. Opiates consist of opium and depress the central nervous system's activity. When the drugs leave the brain, their synapses become understimulated. For many hours after taking the drug, the person may feel euphoric and pain-free and have an increased desire for food and sex. Now we're switching to stimulants. Stimulants increase activity in the central nervous system. Amphetamines are also known as uppers, and people use them to boost energy, stay awake, and lose weight. They are often prescribed as diet pills. They increase the release of dopamine, which enhances the user's activity level and causes pleasurable effects. Crystal meth is probably the most insidious illicit drug. It causes a strong euphoric feeling, especially the first time it is taken, because of the release of dopamine. Cocaine comes from the cocoa plant. It is either snorted or injected in the form of crystals or powder. It enters the bloodstream quickly, producing a rush of euphoric feelings that last for about 15 to 30 minutes. Because of its impact on dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, a depressed and agitated mood can follow once the drug's effects decline. Crack is a potent form of cocaine. It is believed to be one of the most addictive substances known, even more so than heroin, barbiturates, and alcohol. MDMA, or ecstasy, has both stimulant and hallucinogenic properties. Street names are Ecstasy X, XTC, Hugs, Beans, and Love Drug for some. It has adverse effects on memory and cognitive processing. Caffeine is the world's most widely used drug. The term caffeineism is overindulgence in caffeine. It brings about mood changes, anxiety, sleep disruption. It usually occurs in people who drink 5 or more cups of coffee a day. Nicotine is the main psychoactive ingredient in all forms of smoking and smokeless tobacco. It is highly addictive. It stimulates the brain's reward centers by raising dopamine levels. Behavioral effects include improved attention and alertness, reduced anger and anxiety, and pain relief. Surveys suggest that there is a decrease in the amount of adolescent and college students smoking cigarettes at this time. Under hallucinogens, which modify a person's perceptual experiences and produce visual images that are not real, is marijuana. Marijuana comes from the dried leaves and flowers of the hemp plant. The active ingredient in marijuana is THC, which does not affect a specific neurotransmitter. However, it does disrupt the membranes of the neurons and affects the functioning of many neurotransmitters and hormones. The physical effects include an increase in pulse rate and blood pressure, reddening of the eyes, coughing, and dryness of mouth. Psychological effects include a mixture of excitatory, depressive, and mildly hallucinatory characteristics that make it difficult to classify the drug. It can impair attention and memory. When used in large amounts, it can alter sperm count and change hormonal cycles. Some research has shown that long-term marijuana use can mimic the symptoms of ADD. It is very crucial as to when the marijuana is used in terms of whether it is when the brain is developing or has already finished developing. There is research to show that it can be detrimental to those whose brains have not fully developed. It is the most widely used drug by high school students, however. Marijuana has been considered a potential treatment for people who suffer from a variety of diseases, including AIDS, cancer, and chronic pain. If you're interested in medical marijuana, I would suggest that you do research. There is medical marijuana that does not have THC in it at all. It is a completely different substance. So make sure that you do your research. LSD can cause objects to appear to change their shape and glow. Colors become like a kaleidoscope and amazing images unfold. Time seems to slow down. LSD's effect on the body includes dizziness, nausea, and tremors. It acts primarily on the neurotransmitter serotonin, but can also affect dopamine. Hypnosis, kind of hard to define and pinpoint, can be controversial. Hypnotized individuals are aware of what's happening, and they remember the experience later unless they're instructed to forget it. Hypnosis is defined as an altered state of consciousness or a psychological state of altered attention and expectation, in which the individual is unusually receptive to suggestions. Psychology and medicine recognize hypnosis as a legitimate process, and sometimes it's used to manage pain. There are 4 steps in hypnosis. The first step is that distractions should be minimized and the person who is being hypnotized should be made comfortable. The second step is that the hypnotist tells the person to concentrate on something specific. The third step is that the hypnotist tells the person what to expect in the hypnotic state. The fourth step is that the hypnotist suggests certain events he or she knows will occur or observes occurring. Individual variations in hypnosis occur. Some people are more easily hypnotized than others. Some are more strongly influenced by hypnotic suggestions. Hypnotizability refers to the extent at which a person's responses are changed by being hypnotized. If a person has the capacity to immerse themselves in imaginative activities such as listening to a favorite piece of music or reading a novel, they have a higher chance to be hypnotized. There are 2 states of consciousness. One of the states follows the hypnotist's commands and the other one acts as a hidden observer. The social cognitive behavioral view of hypnosis states that hypnosis is a normal state in which the hypnotized person behaves in a way that they believe they should be acting while under hypnosis. Hypnosis is often used for many reasons to include treatment of alcoholism, somnambulism, suicidal tendencies, migraines, overeating, and smoking. Research has shown that hypnosis can reduce the experience of pain and is the most effective when combined with psychotherapy. Hypnosis is more widely used in Europe than the United States as a form of pain control during surgery. Harnessing the power of the mind without a hypnotist can be accomplished through meditation. Meditation involves attaining a peaceful state of mind in which thoughts are not worrisome. Being alone with one's own thoughts can be stressful, but it can also be a powerful tool for constructing a healthy life. The goal of meditative practice is to develop a loving acceptance of oneself and others through fostering warmth, friendliness, and compassion. This type of meditation may lead to improved feelings of social connection, positive emotions, and better coping skills when dealing with stress. And this is called loving kindness meditation. The meditative state of mind shows both qualities of sleep and wakefulness, but it is distinct from each of them. It is kind of like a feeling that everything is going to be okay. a hypnagogic reverie. Researchers have found out that it causes an increase in the basal ganglia and prefrontal cortex. To get started with meditation, you need to follow some basic instructions so that you can achieve a meditative state. Find a quiet, comfortable place. Focus on your breathing. Begin silencing your mind by repeating quietly a word that you associate with an emotion you want to produce. Return to focusing on your breathing if you find that your thoughts and mind cannot be calmed. Then repeat the process again. So in review, we have discussed the nature of consciousness, explained the nature of sleep and dreams, identified the uses and types of psychoactive drugs, and described hypnosis. You should be able to discuss the role of conscious mind and constructing a happy and healthy life.